what is happening here is 3 and Hero of Time here on the MC of Time channel, presenting you with my top 10 Legend of Zelda games. Great heroes are born of adversity, and so are great video game series. The Legend of Zelda is no exception.
Nice job, hero!
After a journey nearly 3 decades long, the Hero of Time has gone through the good and the bad to be crafted into the hero and video game icon he is now. In this franchise there have been some clear gems and some more murky crystals, but every game in the series has had its strengths and flaws. 2 weeks ago I introduced you to my top 10 favorite Legend of Zelda games by showing you my 10th to 6th favorite titles in the series. If you have not already seen that, definitely stop this video now and go watch it, because in about 30 seconds the whole episode will be spoiled. Last time I introduced you to a less arbitrary, more objective process of ranking the games, something that you may not be used to in your typical top 10 videos. First I selected my top 10 favorite Zelda games, and then I arranged them among the list according to how they graded in 11 criteria. Each of the 11 criteria was worth 5 points, adding up to a total of 55 possible points. Now it is important to keep in mind that I am grading them in comparison to other Zelda games, not other games in general. So when a title barely gets more than half the points, that doesn't mean I think it deserves a 6 out of 10 in the next issue of Game Informer, but it simply is not as good as other Zelda titles. So it is all relative within the Zelda franchise. Of the 16 core games, last time I told you the 5 that are the best of the worst. At number 10 was Link's Awakening, followed by Phantom Hourglass. At number 8 was Four Swords Adventure for the GameCube, then A Link to the Past, and finally Skyward Sword. Maybe some of those choices surprised or disappointed you, and you may be wondering where some of the titles are, but that is why there is a part 2. Prepare to be disappointed, aggravated, infuriated, confused, dazed, amazed, flabbergasted, and jubilated. This is my Legend of Zelda Top 5. There is one game in the Legend of Zelda franchise that deserves a spot on every top 10. A game that, in my opinion, should be respected just like the elders of our day. Should all respect be held to the one who began it all? Well, no, not all the respect, but certainly a lot. The Legend of Zelda is my number 5 Legend of Zelda game. Now I know lots of you youngins are saying, Pshaw, nah, yaw, you stupid, why are you so stupid, how dare you put this below Skyward Sword and Link to the Past? But again, I tell you, I've been as objective as possible, and this result I am actually not surprised by. However, I feel obligated to tell you that Link to the Past, Skyward Sword, and Legend of Zelda are actually in a 3-way tie for 5th place. However, I ordered the ties subjectively in the order I like best, because this is my top 10. I think this is obvious. The Legend of Zelda is the most original Legend of Zelda game because, well, look at the game title versus the series title. It started it all. How can you not call it unique? Everything started here. A game full of adventure, temple diving, a large array of weapons and tools, great graphics, awesome music, challenging missions. The game that started it all and created the baseline for video games to come. This game was different than any before it. Story-driven, huge overworld, complex puzzles, original fights. It stood apart from all the games that came before it. However, maybe originality seems like a cheap way for this selection to win an easy 5 points. However, this is the first of the games on the list to get a 5 on any one criteria. However, one other aspect of this game especially sticks out. This game's temples set the standard for challenging video game levels. New puzzles in each temple, each one having new equipment, enemies, and bosses. Temples, being the crown jewel of Zelda games, began their greatness here. So many complex aspects and dungeons involving puzzles and hidden secrets, but more importantly, they were just plain fun. Taking a bunch of dungeons, throwing them in, and just making them butt hard is no good. They need to be fun and make you really want to beat them. The dungeon that best personifies this for me is the 9th one, Death Mountain, or Ganon's Lair. Man, that place is challenging, but I cannot stop playing when I get there. It is just so much fun. This dungeon has an overwhelming amount of rooms that will confuse you to no end. It has bombable walls, hidden passageways, several mini-bosses. But the crowning gem for this game's dungeons is that there is a round 2, where the dungeons are jumbled and redesigned. A game with 2 whole sets of temples. That's just epic. I have high respects for this game, so you may be wondering what I will possibly say is wrong with it. Well, plenty. It's an early game, so a lot of mistakes they learned from started here. One of my favorite parts of a Zelda game is aspects that keep you playing even after you have finished the main quest, the side quests. However, in The Legend of Zelda there aren't side quests. There's one semi-side quest which is almost in every Zelda game, collecting heart containers. In this game, you get 8 heart containers from its 8 bosses. Also, you will find 5 around the world. However, they haven't even thought of splitting those last 5 into 20 heart pieces yet. So it's hardly a challenge, although it makes them more rare, thus more exciting to find. I gave this game 1 point for side quests because technically the 5 heart containers are side quests. You don't have to get them, and they result in 2 rewards: more health for an easier game, and sword improvements. Luckily, Nintendo eventually learned that side quests fit in their game. Definitely a great game, and props to it for beginning my favorite series. Number 4 is another one of those Zelda games I have played many times, one that is a cherished memory from my childhood that forced me to revisit it countless times. There are a few games that I can pick up more than a few times and actually play to the end without getting bored. The next 4 games on this list are just that. But in my childhood, it was this one, more than any other, that I just could not put down and came back to time and again. Oracle of Seasons is my number 4 Legend of Zelda game. Before I get into this, people may be wondering why I did not say Oracle of Ages and Seasons. But there is one good reason: I have yet to play Ages. I'm sure you saw this coming. Whose favorite thing about Oracle of Seasons is not the items and weapons? They are just awesome. Probably my favorite Zelda equipment setup. There is just really no item or weapon not to like. First, the obvious one, at the forefront of the game, the Rod of Seasons. The Rod of Seasons is the Ocarina of Time, the Wind Waker, and the Skyward Sword of Oracle of Seasons. It is the item that the sword revolves around. Upon stepping into an alternate dimension, Link finds the Temple of Seasons where the Rod of Seasons is kept. The way this rod works is by changing the seasons of the game. By doing so, certain items become available, paths open, secrets are unlocked, and all those cool things. When you first discover it, you have the power to bring winter upon the world. Winter makes water freeze, thins down trees, and creates snowdrift bridges. Next, you find the power of summer, which can dry up water sources and makes vines grow. After that, you can find the power to bring autumn or spring in any order, both with their own particular benefits. This weapon added such a cool dynamic to the game, almost making it like 4 games in one. But there are other cool weapons, well, just a few of my favorites. First, the seeds. In Oracle of Seasons, you acquire a seed satchel, which you can fill with 5 different seeds: Ember, Scent, Pegasus, Gale, and Mystery. Each has their own powers and can be shot out of a seed shooter at short distances, a slingshot at long distances, or a hyper slingshot in 3 directions. The powers of each are pretty self-explanatory. The Ember one burns stuff, the Scent seed emits a smell that attracts enemies, the Pegasus seeds are basically the oral dosage equivalent of Pegasus boots, simply making Link run faster. The Gale seeds release a mini tornado that acts as a teleportation system for the game, and the Mystery seed may do any of these things as well as having some progress-specific uses. In Oracle of Ages, there's also a shovel. Go back to part 1 where I talk about Link's Awakening to learn my thoughts on shovels and Zelda. The magnetic gloves are extremely awesome, providing several unique puzzles and ways to kill enemies with, you guessed it, magnetism. Also, 3 different flutes that will bring you one of 3 different mountable companions. All 3 flutes originate as the Strange Flute, which is eventually turned into Dimitri, Ricky, or Mush's flute. They all call beasts that is the namesake of the flute. Dimitri is a young Dodongo, which is tame because it was hurt and cared for by humans. You ride him and he can swim up waterfalls and viciously bite enemies. Ricky is a kangaroo in whose pouch you ride about the world. He can jump and he can punch out enemies and also create small whirlwinds. Moosh is my personal favorite, a winged bear who literally got lost in the woods. Moosh can actually hover to get over certain obstacles, and he uses ground pound to attack, but Moosh is a hydrophobic. So cute. There are even more awesome weapons and equipment in this game, but we cannot talk about those all day. There's actually a lot more I love about this particular game, but I talked about equipment for a long time, so let's talk about the bad. Oracle of Ages is devoid of a comforting amount of side quests. The game is fairly short. Granted, that is probably one of the reasons I was able to beat it so many times. It would have certainly benefited from a few more side quests. Now keep in mind that side quests cannot be pivotal to the progress of the game, the main quests. They have to be completely optional, although they are expected to make your main quests easier. There are two notable side quests, heart pieces and a trading sequence known as the quest for the Noble Sword. The thing is, the Noble Sword is stronger than the starting wooden sword, but weaker than the main quest's Master Sword, or the Big Goron Sword if you are fortunate enough to have your game linked with a Oracle of Ages game. So the quest is hardly worth your time. Basically, everything else of significance is vital to the game's completion. One unique aspect of this game is that the linked game option, wherein you can basically play Oracle of Ages and Seasons in tandem and use codes you unlock to trade either with a friend or your lonely self. I never had friends or enough money to buy two versions of basically the same game, so I don't know what the link game thing is like. However, it simplifies the game and makes it easier in a few ways, heart containers and Big Goron Sword namely. It is a Fortune Kids side quest. I really love Oracle of Ages, and I cannot wait to break it back out for my Let's Play of Time series currently in progress when it comes to its time. You may have noticed that, even for the bad, I have lots of good things to say about this game, and not so much bad. It is going to get progressively more like that with these last three. Let's talk about a Zelda game whose tempo, feel, tone, atmosphere, and concepts in general are nothing like any Zelda game before. Sure, some of the weapons, characters, graphics, and fights are predictable, but it gave off a vibe like no game before or after. No game I have ever played has disturbed me, surprised me, and utterly amazed me as much as this one, especially after I read the creepypasta Been Drowned. I'm sure you guessed it, my third favorite Legend of Zelda game is Majora's Mask. Also, fun fact, Majora's Mask is the Legend of Zelda game I have most recently played. There's just so much good about this game, but there are two particular things it just did amazing. The music in Majora's Mask is more moving and tone-fitting than any Zelda game before or after it. There's not much more I can say about it besides just listen and watch. I've never been one to really dissect a game's music. Lots of people will say it is one of the most important parts, but usually for me it's just sort of a little thing added on. If it is good, awesome. If it sucks, I will turn the game music down low and listen to other music. However, when I play Majora's Mask, the whole time I just think, if they had messed up the music in this game, it just would not be the same. I love the music, but there is one particular element of this game that sets it apart from all of the other Zelda games. You may have noticed that in the last 4 Zelda games, I have thought side quests were one of the more notable aspects, and except Skyward Sword, it has been all bad. So you have probably figured out that, for me, Zelda and side quests go hand in hand. The entirety of Majora's Mask revolves around masks, the Happy Mask Salesman, and namely, Majora's Mask. 24 usable masks are found in the game, of which only 6 are required for the completion of the game. Ironically, none of these 6, or 24 for that matter, are Majora's Mask, so that means 18 side quests. Each mask has some particular power, but that is more on the equipment end of things, so you can play and find that out for yourselves. Each mask is acquired through different quests, some hard, some easy, some long, and some short. Some of the masks are helpful, like the Blast Mask. Some are just silly, like the Kamaro's Mask. However, acquiring masks may lead to other side quests where you can get money, upgrades, and heart pieces. Maybe you are saying the masks can only count as one side quest. First of all, false. I disagree. However, there are still plenty of other side quests that do not require any of these 20 compulsory masks. There are spider houses where you can hunt golden scalantulas to break a curse on a misfortune family and reap the rewards. In the game's 4 temples and central North Clock Town, you can collect 15 little stray fairies. However, the North Clock Town one is actually a requirement, so we won't count it. These fairies are all part of the Great Fairy. When you find them all, you will likely beat the temple and then take them to the nearby Great Fairy Fountain and get power-ups from the Great Fairies of Magic, who gives you the magic power and a scary Great Fairy Mask, the Fairy of Power, who gives you the magic spin attack, the Fairy of Wisdom, who gives you more magic, the Fairy of Courage, who improves your damage resistance, and the Fairy of Kindness, who gives you the Great Fairy Sword. Then of course there are heart pieces, a whole array of ways to upgrade your equipment. This game has a ton of equipment upgrades. As great as this game and its abundant side quests are, there are drawbacks. Majora's Mask has some of the most ridiculous and lame bosses in Zelda. Even the final boss is lame, but Final Battle is a different criteria. I can sum up the bosses in 3 words: easy, indigenous, and insensible. Shall I explain? Let's start with Odawa. You can just shoot him a few times, then walk over and spin around and he drops. Even if you aren't fortunate enough to get the quick kill, you can basically randomly just swing your sword around and you will hit him a few times and he will die. He cannot hurt you much and he just spins around the room. He's clearly designed from some Native American concept and he just makes no sense for the whole temple. You saved monkeys, you fought turtles, and you were condemned by Deku scrubs. Why on this earth is the boss an indigenous humanoid? Maybe monkeys reminded Nintendo of Indians. Then there's God. This guy is slightly harder and actually requires you to use your mask, the Goron mask. But in the end, you just roll around the room after him. If you are one of those losers who finds the mechanical oversights in games, then you know you can just stand in the entrance to this room and shoot him to death. So, he is easy. He also has sort of an indigenous coloring. In fact, all the bosses in this game share a similar color scheme. Think they were going for something there? He is supposed to be a goat, but he looks more like a ram to me. Plus he is a robot. Why is he a goat robot? What ideas impacted that decision? I think people see robotic goats when they are high, so... It's a mountain, so maybe the goat thing sort of makes sense, but the robot thing? Sometimes I just don't know. Don't even get me started on Georg. Now this one is just stupid easy. Again, you usually use your appropriate mask, the Zora mask, although even that is an option. You shoot him with your bow or Zora fin boomerangs or a bow and then dive into the water to get him. Actually, you can just chill in the water as Zora and do both, making it super easy. Again, the whole indigenous fish design thing appears to have inspired this creature. And this boss actually makes sense to its temple. It is basically the water temple, and it is a fish. But can't we be more creative? Just lame altogether. Now Twinmold is the one semi-good boss in the whole game in my opinion. Basically a trimmer. Really, he is super easy. All you have to do is throw on the Giant's Mask, which makes Link become, well, a giant. Then you just hack and slash. Depending on who you are, you can manage to kill the twin insects in a couple minutes, or take up to an hour. But either way, it is easy. There's just not really much of a science to it. Granted, the mask uses your magic meter, so you cannot be big forever, but that is easily solved with Chateau Romani, which is doped up milk that makes your magic unlimited for the 3-day cycle. Also, the trimmers remind you of some sort of indigenous mythological creature, but this time Saharan nomads or something like that. This boss makes just awesome sense for the temple and the area. A canyon, desert, super big, just perfect. An exception to the insensible rule Majora's Mask seemed to try to enforce. Now, I just have to say it. While this fight has no weight on the score in this particular criteria, I want to say something about that final battle. Now, it becomes increasingly clear throughout the game that Majora's Mask is actually the true antagonist. My main beef with the Majora's Mask as the boss of the game deal is that it is not the antagonist the whole time. It is really just a magical piece of apparel. Then it sprouts arms and legs and tries to eat you while doing some Indian rain dance. Throughout the game, the one actually acting as the antagonist is the Skull Kid. To me, the cookie cutter ending would be his demise, but it is not. Really, the Skull Kid sort of ends up being the Damsel of the game, which is why this game gets 1 point in that criteria. It is a harder battle than the rest of the game's fights, but it isn't really that bad. For me, it is terribly out of place. But the bosses of Majora's Mask are extremely disappointing. If it had better bosses, a better final battle, and maybe a real Damsel, it might be tied for second or first. But don't get me wrong, this is a great game, and everyone needs to pick it up and play it today if they haven't already. For my top 2 Legend of Zelda games, the lowest score they got in any criteria was a 4. So I'm not going to have a lot of bad to say about these next 2 titles. Actually, my score for number 2 and number 1 Zelda game was a tie. As before, the tiebreaker is my preference, so the line between these two is completely personal and subjective. You may be surprised to see it at number 2, but Ocarina of Time is my second favorite Legend of Zelda game. Ocarina of Time is an awesome game, full of original, creative, dynamic content, and, like I said, there is not enough bad in this game to add up and hurt any one criteria. But that is not to say it is perfect. It is flawed, but the flaws are far and few. In this top 10, I actually haven't said anything bad about equipment, although a few games got 3s and Phantom Hourglass got a paltry 2. However, with the exception of Oracle of Ages, there has never been a Zelda equipment setup close to as good as Ocarina of Time's. Let's talk notables. First, the arrows. You shoot the sun and get awesome arrows that ignite into fire. The fire arrows make several puzzles easier, especially those that involve torch lighting or blowing things up. The ice arrows you acquire after a sort of Temple of Trials in Garuda Valley is not pivotal to the game, and lots of people beat the game without ever knowing how to get it. It makes your enemies literally freeze in place, making it a lot easier for you to get the upper hand. Then you acquire the light arrows in Ganon's castle, which are basically a more magical, less cliché version of the silver arrow. There are evil vanquishing arrows. They really don't contribute anything to the rest of the game, but they are super cool. Then there's the introduction of the short-supplied, wall-climbing Bombachus. There are bombs in the form of rats that you can deploy to reach faraway targets, making several puzzles much easier. The Lens of Truth adds several layers of complexity, from looking through walls to seeing invisible enemies. The Megaton Hammer, my personal favorite hammer rendition in Zelda, useful to get through several puzzles and just makes Link look like a real man when he's swinging it around. And who doesn't love smushing Volvagia's face with it? Then there is the magic. Dense fire surrounds you in a wall of fire, destroying enemies and lighting things around you. Ferora's wind allows you to easily teleport through temples, eliminating annoying backtracking. And Nehru's love, which covers you in a magical shield that absorbs all attacks. It makes you invulnerable, but you cannot use other magic with it on. Then the hover boots and mirror shield, and just all kinds of stuff in this game that I could talk all day about. But there's even better things to discuss. The very best part of Ocarina of Time is the bosses. There just is not a stinker among them. Even all the mini-bosses are awesome. I cannot tell you my thoughts on each one, so I will just do my favorites. My favorite boss as Kid Link is the infernal dinosaur, King Dodongo. This is just a cool fight. Easy? Yeah, but cool. My first memory of The Legend of Zelda was going over to my neighbor's house in kindergarten with my older brother. We hung out with a girl his age. They were in 3rd grade, and her brother who was a year older. We would go over to their house and play games like Diddy Kong Racing and Star Fox 64, and then a few games I just had to watch like Final Fantasy VII and Ocarina of Time. So one day they let my brother play and I had to watch as usual. He got to King Dodongo and, try as he might, after like 5 tries, he couldn't kill him. With some smooth negotiating, I convinced him to let me try, and I slayed that infernal dinosaur in 1 try. So yes, he is easy. But the fight is fun. My favorite mini-boss in the whole Zelda franchise, Shadow. Until my last playthrough, where I stumbled upon the slash-away tactic, he was the hardest part of the game. I just love the concept, and the fight is stupid cool. He is such an awesome mini-boss and really deserved this spot over Morpha to me. My favorite boss in the game is Twinrova. The absorbing fire to fight ice and vice versa strategy is just too fun. I think that is the trend with Ocarina of Time bosses, is that they are just too much fun. Not all hard, but the fights are so original and enjoyable. I can't decide if Twinrova is harder separated or united, but she certainly can keep you confused when you have to absorb 3 shots before firing back. For some reason, you always believe that the 3rd fire is coming and then comes the ice. Just an all-around perfect battle. The bosses of this game are just incredible. I have good things to say about all of them. There is one aspect I have yet to say anything good about. That is the Damsel criteria. A few of the games have gotten 4s, but this is the first to get a 5. In Ocarina of Time, the Damsel, appropriately Zelda, is just terrific. Her role in the game is a set-apart secondary protagonist. From foiling Ganon's plot to overthrow the kingdom, to throwing you the Ocarina of Time, to disguising herself as Sheik, to guide you all along, she is exceedingly useful in the game. There is no other Zelda game where the person who asks for your help helps you just as much. However, in this game you are not really saving Zelda, but the world. And Zelda does not act like a damsel in distress, but the leader of the movement. Ocarina of Time has the best Zelda character by far in the entire series. Ocarina of Time is just a fantastic game altogether. There is so much good to it, and so little bad. Few games have been played, thoroughly enjoyed, and then replayed by so many. It's hard to believe I think there's a Zelda game better than it, huh? Before we get to number 1, let's recap my top 9 Legend of Zelda games. So Link to the Past was number 7, Skyward Sword was 6, Majora's Mask was number 3, and Ocarina of Time was number 2. Lots of people would predict one of those as number 1. However, with them out of the picture, I am sure you have narrowed it down to a few possibilities. All that is left is The Adventure of Link, Oracle of Ages, Four Swords for Game Boy Advance, Wind Waker, Minish Cap, Twilight Princess, and Spirit Tracks. Now, it definitely can't be Oracle of Ages, because, like I said, I have not played it. The rest of them I have played, though. Now, I know that a lot of you will be mad as all get out if 2 of the particular titles are not on my list. Some will be mad with one, some the other, some will be mad either way. So get ready to be really ticked off. Nah, JK. My number one Legend of Zelda game is The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Only one Legend of Zelda game gets a 5 out of 5 in graphics for me. And until this clip, becomes an in-game reality, another one probably won't. I actually generally enjoy Zelda graphics, but Twilight Princess graphics are just flawless. There probably is not a single game in any series whose graphics I have enjoyed so much. Forget Call of Duty and all the hairs you can see on a guy's arms. Good graphics are not about high definition or seeing every detail. It is about feeling the game through sight. You should see the feelings and thoughts behind the making of a game in its graphics. The visuals have to reveal more than physical detail, but emotions, inspiration, tone, and temperament. Games that purely strive for high definition simply are a semblance of a good game. They make you think that since you can see the pores on the guy's skin, a lot of thought went into this game. However, in Twilight Princess, the graphics, videos, and visual atmosphere invoke deep, complex feelings. The whole game revolves around small light and deep darkness. This can be seen in many of the cutscenes of the game. Each scene invokes different emotion, be it despondency, Indignation?
Angry when Baldur. You do say get your Baldur. Baldur and or Bal Medledas. This goes. To the gym here.
Solus? Or delectation? And the atmosphere and animation through the game emphasizes the serious tone of the story. This is not a happy, glowing Zelda game. Stuff has just gotten real in Hyrule, and it shows. But really, the graphics aid my absolute favorite part of Twilight Princess. The graphics serve to tell a story, not just to catalyze the storyline, but to be one of the primary reagents in this video game reaction. Another area I have yet to give a 5 out of 5. Twilight Princess' story is the absolute best in Zelda history. A young ranch hand in the village of Ordon wakes up one day that is just like any other day. The young man is a descendant of the hero of time that once saved Hyrule in the story we know as Ocarina of Time, and soon it will be his time to return to the ancient Temple of Time and reclaim the Master Sword that his ancestor once fought with. When this game came out, it was expressly said to be the sequel to Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. The Ganondorf that you sealed away in Ocarina of Time is the one that Zant and his ghouls are working on releasing now. Little to your sheltered knowledge, a war wages between the usurped princess of the Twilight Dimension and the princess of the soon-to-be overthrown Kingdom of Hyrule against the King of Twilight, who dreams of releasing the ancient Dark King of Power. It is your task to rise from your humble roots and find the Master Sword to vanquish Zant before he completes his mission. However, you come just a bit too late, and after defeating Zant, you will return to the castle to see Ganondorf sitting on your princess's throne. It's time to throw down the gauntlet, but more on that in the next part. This is just a stupidly epic storyline. There is so much behind it. The sages sealing him, deals made in the metaphorical underworld, the spirits of light trying to combat the looming twilight, and then small, subtle details. Ganondorf killing the Sage of Water to avoid captivity, the amount of people who die at the hands of evil, and the impact that Link's decision to return the Master Sword in the Ocarina of Time had on the world and its many races. Twilight Princess teaches one important lesson. Sometimes there just is not an easy or right choice. In terms of the big finale, Nintendo definitely made the right choice in the final battle. I absolutely love all of the bosses and most of the mini-bosses in the Twilight Princess. However, I have already talked a lot about bosses, both good and bad, but I have yet to say anything positive about the final battles in any of the Zelda games, and boy do I have stuff to say about Twilight Princess's final duel. Only 2 of the games on this list got a 5 out of 5 for final battle. That is Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess. And Twilight Princess completely blew away Ocarina of Time. The hero has defeated Zant, but just a little too late. Ganondorf is able to come back. Quickly, Link races to Hyrule Castle, where he finds Ganondorf sitting about his princess's throne, her body hanging a limp, lifeless form. After a terrifying speech and Link standing, looking helpless, Ganon indwells Zelda's body. He uses her as a puppet to attempt to quickly deal with Link without risking harm to his still weak body. Link is forced to face a dilemma. He must fight the princess to save the world. However, after fighting her in the Ganondorf classic Magic Volley, Link wounds the princess a few times, and as Ganondorf's power in her body starts to sap, your 5 out of 5 sidekick Midna suffocates his Twilight spirit out of Zelda. Ganondorf starts to reassimilate, but he is mad. He turns into his magical beast form, and you throw him around like one of those goats back on Ordon Ranch. In a battle that challenges you to use your human and wolf form, you manage to take him down. But contrary to what almost everyone expected, the fight is still not over. In a very creepy sequence, Midna teleports Link and Zelda away and appears to finish off the Dark King. But when you arrive in the Hyrule Field, he is there, upon his steed, holding Midna's helmet in his hand, waiting for his last fight. Out comes Epona, and you and Zelda take to the fight. With her shooting light arrows from behind, you lock into the most epic final battle of any video game. After a fast-paced, challenging horseback fight, Ganondorf is knocked off his dark steed. He encircles Link and himself in a magic force field, and you fight in a classic one-on-one sword fight. At the culmination of the battle, you leap upon Ganondorf and drive the Sword of Light into the heart that would bring darkness. This final battle just changed my views on the Zelda series so much. This battle was so dark, thought-provoking, and unpredictable. If anything is wrong with this fight, it is that it was pretty easy. The first time it is challenging, but any time after that it is a breeze. However, I honestly think the production team made it this way on purpose. Because if you died constantly and had to redo the battle 20 times, you would be so exasperated and desperate trying to win. They wanted you to enjoy the events of the final battle, not sweat for hours trying to figure out the trick. Honestly, so many times I've heard people complain about the final battles of Zelda being too easy, but to me it makes the games that much better. In Twilight Princess you are given a chance to appreciate the story antagonist for who he is. Though it may not be challenging to you, you get the true feeling that in many ways this is the greatest challenge Link, Midna, or Zelda have ever overcome. The final fight is more than just pressing the right buttons, it is about telling a story. I hate telling people what to take from things like books, movies, or games, so I'm not going to tell you what I think this battle really means and symbolizes, but let me tell you, the next time or first time you play it, think about the battle. A lot of thought goes behind the making of these games, and in Twilight Princess it is clear to me how much thought went into the final battle. All in all, Twilight Princess is the #1 Legend of Zelda game for me. It is not flawless, but it is as close as Nintendo has gotten. Every time Nintendo announces a new Zelda in development, I sit in anticipation, hoping it will have the same graphics, tone, and feel of Twilight Princess. No game is perfect. Even my favorite Zelda game only gets 50 out of 55 points. But it is important that game makers learn from both their mistakes and their successes, which, unfortunately, the Zelda team does not seem to have done. I hope for a game that can one day get 51, 52, maybe even 55 points on my scale, and that one day Twilight Princess is not even on my top 5. But that day is not here, and for now I will continue to call The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess the best Zelda game ever. The Legend of Zelda has been full of surprises. Full of predictable decisions, full of excitement, and full of dull titles. But through its 28-year history, the Zelda series has brought great enthusiasm and pleasure to gamers everywhere. I love the Zelda series more than any other, and it was super hard just to pick 7 games to leave out of my top 10. And it was even harder to scrutinize and try to objectively rate some of my favorite games. I am sure this top 10 has surprised you. It surprised me on several occasions, and I warned you this one might make you mad. I really hope you enjoyed this top 10 series. If you did not enjoy it, please tell me why. It was along 2 parts, but I really wanted to get details out and give reasoning to my choices to be different than the subjective top 10 countdowns. I hope I gave you strong enough evidence to support my placement, even if you do not agree. And if you don't agree, please tell me why. Feel free to critique my criteria. Maybe one of my criteria is unfair and does not belong. Tell me how you would grade all of my top 10, or just tell me your personal top 10. I hope you will check out my Let's Play of Time currently in progress, where I am going to beat every single Zelda game 100%. That means every item, heart piece, and secret in the Zelda series, including that stinkin' Hylian Loach awaits. Also, look forward to more top 10 countdowns inspired by Zelda that will look more specifically at my 11 criteria. A top 10 Zelda cutscenes, songs, stories, weapons, bosses, temples, side quests, sidekicks, damsels, final battles, and unique elements. If you liked the video, please leave a big ol' thumbs up and subscribe to see more. Until next time, I'm 3 in here of Time on the MC of Time channel.